Hey guys, this is Dave with Audio In. Today we're going to be taking a look at the BGVP DM9. Now this is BGVP's newest 9-driver tri-brid flagship IEM. This is everything you get in the package with the DM9. Comes with the IEMs and cable, of course. It also includes a nice case, nice assortment of tips, and a cleaning tool. As for the price, design, and specifications, the DM9 is priced at $689 and has a 9-driver tri-brid configuration consisting of 4 EST drivers, 4 balanced armature drivers, and 1 dynamic driver. And from what I understand, the 4 Sonyin EST drivers cover the ultra high frequencies. Then you have 2 Sonyin BA drivers for the lower treble and 2 Knowles BA drivers for the mids, and then finally a 9.2 millimeter liquid silicone film dynamic driver that covers the bass frequencies. As for the construction of the shell itself, it's made from cured dyed wood, and because it's made from wood, each shell has its own unique grain pattern, so no 2 shells look alike. And as for the cable, it's made from high purity single crystal copper and has swappable 4.4 and 3.5 terminations. The build quality of the cable is really good. It's soft, it's pliable, it's comfortable, and generally easy to manage. However, I do wish they would have used 2-pin connectors instead of the MMCX connectors. And while these look like high quality connectors and they feel very secure, I've had way too many issues with MMCX cables in the past, which I don't worry as much just using them around the house, but I would like to use these on stage for playing drums, but I'm hesitant because I move around a lot and the MMCX cables just seem to wear out a lot faster. Otherwise, the cable, again, it is very nice, and I do like the color of the cable as well, which brings us to the design. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the IEMs are made out of dyed wood, and they give you 2 different color options, green or purple. I've got the purple, and I'll be sure and get some good B-roll shots of these, because if you look closely, you can see the unique wood grain in the shells, which is very beautiful because there are a bunch of different shades of purple and textures going on. And then with the glossy finish itself, it just all works together beautifully. And the shape of the shell itself is great as well and fits my ears perfectly. So I had no issues with discomfort at all and was able to achieve a really solid seal with the provided tips. And I also want to quickly point out the case as well, because while I'm not a huge fan of white, just because I'm afraid it's going to get dirty over time, I do love the shape and the design, and I know the larger cases can take up more space when you're traveling, but at the same time, it's nice to not have to cram my IEMs in the case and then have to fight the case to get it closed. So I really do like this case a lot. Okay, let's talk about the sound of the DM9. As for the overall sound presentation, I would consider it to be neutral, but with some upper mid and treble emphasis. And if I'm being honest, the mids and treble are a little more prominent than I prefer. And while I wouldn't necessarily say it's unbalanced, I would say it's pushing vocals and instruments just a little more forward than I like. That being said, I do feel like there is enough bass to help balance everything out, and the overall treble presentation is still smooth enough and clean enough to avoid ever becoming fatiguing or overbearing. Now, if we break things down a little further, starting with the bass, despite the upper mid and treble forwardness, there is still enough bass and mid bass presence to keep the DM9 from kind of falling into that unbalanced territory. So the bass is never lacking or overshadowed by the upper mids and treble. There is also good bass extension, so you have plenty of sub bass presence and rumble. Of course, you have that dynamic driver handling the bass frequencies. So you're going to get really good dynamic slam and a little more of that visceral sensation that you might expect from a dynamic driver. And as you move into the mid bass, those frequencies do push into the lower mids just a little bit, adding some mid bass and lower mid warmth, but the bass is well controlled, and that transition out of the bass into the lower mids is handled really, really well. So there's no bass bleed or muddiness to diminish the mid bass and lower mid detail. And then moving into the mids, this is where the DM9 again starts to slightly deviate from my personal tuning preference, because the forwardness in the upper mids do kind of push the vocals and instruments out in front just slightly. And while I'm a vocal lover, I don't necessarily prefer a vocal centric style tuning. That being said, it is still very tastefully done, and the vocals and instruments still sound very natural. And I would think probably vocal lovers would like the DM9, because there is definitely something special about the way vocals are portrayed, especially female vocals. Now, as for mid-range detail, it's excellent. As a matter of fact, I would say the detail and clarity is very, very good from top to bottom. And the note decay is also very good. So pianos, guitars, drums just sound resolved and never sound cut off or unfinished. And as you move into the treble, again, in addition to the extra upper mid presence, you also have some of that extra treble presence as well. As a matter of fact, the lower treble kind of reminds me just a little of the Cadenza 12, which I just recently reviewed. It doesn't reach the levels of detail or have the technical chops that the Cadenza 12 has, but it does seem like there might be some similarities just in the tuning of the lower treble. And like the Cadenza 12, the DM9 can start to push into the treble head realm, but it's done really well in my opinion, especially with stringed instruments, violins. There's just this energy and clarity with some of the instruments that fall into those lower treble region, that it just gives them a little more life, but never to the point of becoming distracting. And while cymbal strikes also have a little more energy, it's not to the point of sounding harsh or overly splashy or unnatural. The DM9 also has really good extension, so there's plenty of sparkle and air. So I guess the bottom line is, while the DM9 does have some treble forwardness, the EST drivers are controlling those high frequencies quite well. It's more treble forward than I would normally prefer, but somehow it still works for me, and I'm having no problem at all enjoying almost every genre that I've tried with the DM9. As for technicalities, the DM9 has very good detail and clarity and has no problem handling complex or busy compositions. Instrument separation and layering are also very good. It has good forward depth and layering and presents soundstage naturally and is fairly accurate for an IEM. Instruments have good density and are anchored well within the sound field, and they don't sound floaty or out of focus. So all in all, I would say this is a very good IEM. It's not necessarily to my tuning preference, but like I said, somehow it still works. And I can see how someone might be drawn to this type of tuning. Now, when I compare this to some of my other IEMs between say 500 and 700, like the IE600, Variations, Urd, SA6 Ultra, SA6, or even my Zen Pros, which is I think 900, I would say this definitely holds its own in terms of overall performance within its price range. I still like the IE600 more because it's a super fun IEM and it has killer technicalities. And the SA6 Ultra is just an incredible all-arounder and is just tough to beat, period. I would say the DM9 has better technicalities than the SA6 or Variations, although those are both closer to my tuning preference. But I guess really the question is would I recommend the DM9, especially when you've got so many options in this price range? And this is a little tough for me because I'm okay with having a little diversity of tuning in my collection as long as it's not too far off target and if it has good technicalities, because sometimes that step up in technicalities or that detail retrieval, imaging, layering, and all those immersive characteristics can still help to draw me in despite maybe the tuning not being exactly to my taste. And like I've said before, sometimes I like a little variety, but that might be different for you. So I guess if you're okay with a slightly more mid and treble forward tuning, then maybe this will work for you. I do know that this will give you technicalities that are at least on par, maybe even better than what you might expect at this price point. And it's got a beautiful design. It's well built. The cable is good despite it being a 2-pin cable. It's a modular cable, and you have a very, very nice case. So I do think this price is justified given the overall performance of the DM9. So that concludes my review of the BGVP DM9. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.